Hey everyone, so good to see you again today. I have been thinking a lot about my family. My mom is actually living with us now. It's so nice to have her around all the time. But I grew up with a family of five. My mom and my dad, and I have an older brother and a younger brother. And it wasn't always easy being in the middle. It wasn't always easy having an older sibling. How many of you have brothers or sisters? It can be fun, but it can also be kind of hard sometimes. And I was just thinking about how sometimes it was a lot easier for me just to go and tell my mom and dad that my brothers did something to me that I didn't like. They hurt my feelings or even hurt me, or I just didn't get what I wanted from them. And so I would go and tell on them. And, one of the hardest things that there was for me to learn was how to go to them directly and work it out. That seems simple, but sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. And that's exactly what Jesus is talking about in today's gospel. Jesus talks about conflict and how we handle that together. And that first step, the first thing he asks us to do is to go to the person who we had a problem with, who maybe hurt our feelings or did something that maybe they're totally unaware of. Or maybe even the other way around, maybe we did something to them, and in order to work it out, we need to go to them and talk about it. It's really easier said than done, especially when you think about someone like your brother. At least for me, my big brother always seemed to know how to push my buttons. And it was always so hard for me because I knew I was right. I knew I didn't do anything to deserve it. And yet he kept pushing my buttons. So how do you handle that when you know that you are just innocent and sweet and you would never do anything to deserve that, and your big brother keeps doing it anyway? Well, I think going to my parents also meant I was taught the lesson to work it out. They would talk it through with me and really push me to go talk to my brother and deal with it between us. And sometimes it worked itself out, and sometimes it took a lot of time. And maybe even it just ended by us agreeing to just let it go. Sometimes that's what you have to do when you're working with someone, but we are both on the same page with that. And so we've been able to grow up, and now we're both adults and have our own families. And now my brother gets to deal with the other side of it when my nephews go to him and they're messing with each other. Now this story today, this message from Jesus, made me think about my brothers and how hard it was for me growing up with them. But you don't have to have siblings to practice this and to experience that kind of conflict in the world. The idea that we need to go to each other and work things out one-on-one applies to every relationship in our life, because we see each other as children of God. We know through the eyes of our faith that God has created every person around us. And so we need to act out God's love for each other with each other. It's very easy to talk about showing love and imagining love. It's a lot harder to do it. So it doesn't matter what age we are. I know this is the children's message, but all of us have to practice this every day. Sometimes it gets easier, but sometimes there's always a certain relationship where maybe it's harder. It can be with someone you know very well and someone you've only met once or twice. But it's important for us to learn how to talk to each other and share, hey, this is how I experienced that. This is what your words did to me. This is what I hope for us, that we can actually live out this body of Christ together, that we are all God's children. So we talk, but more importantly, I think it's also a matter of listening and paying attention to what God is doing in the midst of that conversation, and trust that God is going to work it out. That maybe not that minute, maybe not that first conversation, but if we give it time, that God is going to work out that conflict so that you can end up being a really good friend or a really good teammate or a really good partner or a really good sibling with that person because of the hard work you do together to work it out. So think of that today as you go throughout your day with your family, with everyone you're living with in the same house, with your coworkers, wherever you find yourself today. Think about the fact that we are all children of God and we are all called by God to go meet with each other and work through these difficult things together. And when that doesn't work, we're also there to rely on each other, to have allies and friends come with us to listen and help us hear and manage these difficult things together, all for the glory of God.